when I look back on our first, actually when we were under construction,
Yeah.
and I was there on Saturday in November or something, I called my partners and said, "There's not a car on the street right now. What are we thinking?
Yeah.
How are
you
we
mean this
gonna-"
was back 20?
This was 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
20 plus years ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Right.
How are we going to open a restaurant down here? They're like, don't worry, it'll be all right.
Yeah. Easier said than done. Don't worry, it'll be all right. You're only pouring your heart and soul and money into a business that is starting in an area that has faced decades of vacancy and different redevelopment plans. It turned out all right for owner of Peg's restaurant, Peg Dalton, who you just heard, and her restaurants over the years. You'll hear all about her journey next, but first, welcome to the first ever episode of Round the Bend Now and Then, a podcast that shines a light on the South Bend and Mishawaka area. Through interviews with local business owners, leaders, and community members, our listeners and I learn together about all of the great people and great things going on in our community, as we also learn about South Bend and Mishawaka's history and how intertwined our past is with our present. Since this is the first ever episode, I want to take a moment to introduce myself and describe my vision for the show. My name is Matt Emery. I'm a lifelong resident of our area, Adams High School graduate, class of 1996, IU grad, happily married husband to my beautiful bride, and blessed father to two wonderful sons. I'm a longtime, 2-decade-plus educator in our local schools, so my roots are deep to our area. I'm passionate about the South Bend and Mishawaka area, and I love learning about its history. My vision is to share that passion with you as I meet with local business owners, leaders, and community members and hear about their journeys and hear their stories. The format that I envision for Around the Bend Now and Then may have some episodes where the focal point is on an individual or their business or organization. Other episodes may focus on an event, a place, or time in our local history, and then I bring in guests to learn more about it. I think in the first several episodes, you'll get a real sense of what I envision the podcast to be like, a good mixture of our past and our present. For example, in this episode, I meet with Peg Dalton, longtime owner of downtown South Bend restaurants Le Peeps and now PEGGS. Her block, the 100 block of South Michigan Street, was quite the hot topic in the 1970s and 80s as our downtown was being transformed during the urban renewal era. So in the next episode, I meet with former South Bend Mayor Roger Parent, and he shares his memories of downtown urban renewal during his time on the city council and as mayor. Another business that I already wanted to highlight was Griffin Games and Bookstore on Colfax. I mean, it's been downtown since 1976. How cool is that? Ken, the owner, has seen so many changes over the years, so in our third episode, I meet with him, and he shares such a beautiful journey that he and his late wife Sarah started almost 50 years ago, including being directly impacted by the same exact urban renewal redevelopment projects. It's truly amazing to hear all three of their experiences and how they are all directly or indirectly intertwined around that same 100 block of South Michigan Street. Now, let's jump into Peg Dalton and her journey as a small business owner in South Bend, Indiana. What started as a part-time college job in Bloomington, Indiana, has turned into Peg Dalton's life work and service to her community. A community that she loves deeply and takes her role in serving very seriously. But next, we take it back. For a moment, we talk about growing up in South Bend. She shares where she grew up at, where she went to high school, and we also talk about shopping in downtown South Bend when she was a kid. So are you from the area?
I am. Yep.
Where are you from? What high school?
I went to Clay High School.
Clay High School.
Yeah.
All right. So you're a Clay colonial.
I sure am.
South Bend.
Yep.
Love it. I'm a Adams Eagle. Of course.
Of course.
What, as a kid growing up, what were some of your just favorite memories of South Bend?
Well, I have to say, growing up on the north side, we kind of stayed there. Yeah. I mean, we came downtown to Robertson's and JCPenney's, and remember when the downtown had the mall and it was kind of closed off, and you could, walk in the middle of the street. But we didn't go downtown a lot.
No.
When I was older, my dad was a member of the Summit Club. So we had special occasions there.
Right.
But we didn't go downtown a lot. We went to Scottsdale Mall when Scottsdale Mall was there. That was a huge adventure for us. We'd get on a bus at Notre Dame and go to Scottsdale Mall. And the University Park Mall was built when I was in 7th grade. So then that became
the spot. It was right up the street.
Right. Yeah.
So when you were growing up, it was already at a time when folks had started heading towards the malls.
Yes.
And everything like that.
Yes. Yeah.
And that would have been quite a haul for you up north all the way south to Scottsdale. So
yes.
Oh, but you rode a bus.
We took a bus, which, like I said, was big for us. I mean, we just kind of stayed in our own. We had so much in Swanson.
Yes.
All of our friends, the school, a pool. I mean, we didn't have to go far to find fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was all right there.
It sure was. Yeah.
You didn't have to mess around with these cell phones.
No. My mom would say, we'd go to the pool. She'd say, just be back by dinner and run home for dinner and go back up for the evening swim
I love
session.
it. I love it. These kids have no clue, man.
No, they don't.
They don't have their mom or dad yelling at them to come home to eat dinner. They're already home.
Yep.
A little background here. She mentioned heading downtown and when they closed Michigan Street to traffic outside of JCPenney's and Robertson's with the outside mall, the Riverbend Plaza. Many of my listeners probably don't know the downtown JCPenney building as a building where you shop at. We knew it as a building where you did shots at. We knew it as the nightclub's heartland or club fever. But in the 1970s, Michigan Street in that area was closed to traffic. They installed fountains and benches in the street to somehow mimic a shopping mall feel. That was at a time when our downtown was losing retail shopping fast to Scottsdale Mall, University Park Mall, and by then the Town and Country Shopping Center had been there for a while. And it's ironic that at the same time Peg was shopping downtown at Robertson's or Penny's as a child, there was a decade-plus long debate on what to do with the land just north of there, where her future business will stand 20-plus years later in the 100 block of South Michigan Street. If some of the redevelopment plans the city had been planning with private developers would have gone through at the time, La Peeps or PEGGS as we know it today would definitely not be in that little area. Next, you'll hear how Peg's relentless work ethic started as she was basking in the sunshine of Swanson Highlands neighborhood pool. Then, we talk about her first job in the restaurant business when she was attending pretty much the best school in the state, IU in Bloomington, Indiana. When you were at Clay High School, did you have a high school job?
I did. I was a lifeguard.
Okay, at Swanson Pool?
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, for 4 years I was a lifeguard there. And then I also worked at Gilbert's, which was a men's clothing store at the mall. They had a couple other locations. In fact, I think they had one downtown.
Okay.
But I worked at the one at the mall.
So you worked at the Gilbert's at Scottsdale?
No, at University
UP?
Park. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think Gilbert's downtown, I think that was the homeless shelter now.
I think you're right.
I'm almost certain.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That the Gilbert's is the homeless shelter now. So you worked at Gilbert's in the mall and then you're a lifeguard too?
Yeah.
Okay. So you didn't work in a restaurant at all?
No, that didn't happen until I was in college.
Speaking of college, where'd you go?
I went to IU, Bloomington. Yeah.
All right, so you went to Bloomington.
I sure did.
B-Town.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's where I went, and that's where my money goes now because we have our senior in college goes down there.
That's awesome. Yeah,
so he's going to graduate.
Both of my daughters went there.
Oh,
as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
My son's a lot more calmer than I was, and so I think his experience is a little bit more laid back than mine was. We tended to have a lot of fun.
So did we. So did we. We were there when IU won the national championship.
87?
87. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
So that would have been neat.
It was something.
That would have been cool.
Yeah.
So down in Bloomington, did you you said you worked in a restaurant down there? Where did you work?
So McCree's here in South Bend. There was a franchise, McCree's Deli in Bloomington, and That's where
Okay.
I started in the restaurant business. Went to get just a part-time job, and then I became a manager there, and then I worked for them for 12 years. I moved back up here and worked for Jerry McCree.
Oh, so you worked down in Bloomington, and then you
moved back up here
and worked for the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
I opened 6 different restaurants with and for him.
Golly.
Yeah.
Next, we talk about Peg's dive into being a small business owner when she had some opportunities to form partnerships to open a couple of restaurants. So you're in McCree's in Bloomington. You moved up here, worked at McCree's. What was the next landing spot after McCree's up here?
So I had a friend come to me and say that she was going to open a wine bar, and would I be interested in doing that with her? And I said yes, and designed the menu, did the build out of the place. I mean, we literally were scraping the paint off the ceiling, and so
what was that? The wine bar was
the Vine.
The Vine.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
At the time, we were just talking. I was talking to one of my buddies about like the old Mishawaka Brew Company, the microbrewery on Main Street, and they were like one of the earlier like microbreweries, and now they're all over the place. Was that one of the earlier? I don't remember.
I'm sure it was the first wine bar in South Bend. Yeah. Mary had a lot of knowledge about wine, had been selling wine, I believe, at that point, or was starting to. And I knew nothing about wine.
Yeah.
12 years out of college, married, and have 3 children at that point.
Man.
Yeah.
And to basically learn new.
So anyway, it was a really, really fun adventure. I learned a lot. I helped get the business started. The partnership didn't go exactly how I wanted it to.
Right.
And then another opportunity came along, and that's how I got into the breakfast business.
Was the other opportunity Le Peeps? I'm going to read you something from February 16th, 2001. You probably know the article, but it says, quote, 15 years in the restaurant business have been enough for Peg Dalton to realize the importance of a backup plan. This means she won't be in panic mode early Saturday morning if the cash register still hasn't arrived at the new Le Peep restaurant in downtown South Bend. A cigar box will do the trick. Saturday and Sunday are only for practice anyway. Her staff of 36 will demonstrate their omelet and pancake making techniques on some downtown business people who have been invited to a sneak peek.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yep. So almost 22 years ago.
Unreal.
Yeah, it really is. It really is amazing. It's been an amazing journey.
Oh, I'm sure. Man, what was going through your head at first when you took that dive?
Well, I had partners.
That's right.
And they were the ones that asked me to do it. They both had other, real jobs where they were going to make some money. But they wanted to open. They were familiar with Le Peep from Indianapolis, and so they wanted to open one. But they had to have a partner who had restaurant experience.
I see.
So a friend of mine introduced me to them. They said, "Are you interested?" And I went and checked one out in Chicago.
I see.
So,
man, that's a risk. I mean,
it was a big risk.
It was. That's seriously a big risk. And at the time, your kiddos were younger, or
yes.
Wow.
And I had to go out to Colorado for 2 months to train.
Oh.
So my husband at the time was home with an 8, a 6, and a 4-year-old for 2 months. So he whipped them in shape. They were making their own lunches when I came home.
Darn right.
Yeah.
We mentioned taking a risk there. It was definitely a risk at the time to open a restaurant in downtown South Bend in the late 1990s. And I do want to be clear here. I completely understand that our downtown area will never be like it was in the 1950s with all of the shopping there. I can tell you, however, that from my perspective, the activity in our downtown now in 2023 is way more than what there was in the late 1990s when Peg and her partners opened up those restaurants. When she opened PEGGS, that building, the Layton Plaza on the 100 block of South Michigan Street, was brand new. There is a Tribune article from August 19, 1999, describing the dedication ceremony to Layton Plaza. Quote, Layton Plaza is the crown jewel centerpiece for downtown South Bend's renewal, said Reverend David Morrow at Wednesday's dedication program. And it was a big deal. I mean, that plaza has several different buildings making up 80,000 square feet. And at the time, there were numerous different newspaper articles touting the new development. But get this, that land on the 100 block of South Michigan Street, for the most part, sat vacant, empty for 20 plus years going back to the 1970s. In the mid to late 1970s, that exact same block was the hot topic of the day. Developers and some city leaders wanted to build the Century Mall in that same area to bring retail back to downtown South Bend and compete with University Park, Scottsdale, and Town and Country shopping centers. Over a several-year span, the city purchased building by building, and as a part of a federal urban renewal program, they demolished them to make way for the Century Mall. Well, very, 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 very long story short, obviously the Century Mall was never built. Former Mayor Roger Parent and I, we talk about it more in depth in our next episode, but you can definitely see that it was a risk to start a restaurant in an area that literally sat vacant for 2 decades. But 20 plus years later, I think it paid off. Next, we talk about some early challenges of running a restaurant. And wait until you hear how much of a grind those early years were. Do you remember what were some of the early challenges when you first dove into it?
Well, I can't believe we had 36 employees.
I know, I read that. I thought that's
like
a lot.
Staffing was a problem.
Yeah, like now.
Not like now. What were some of the challenges? We didn't know the business.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know the trends. So it was a real learning curve the first year or two.
Mm-hmm.
I was there a lot. That certainly is typically a challenge in the restaurant business. You're there a lot if you want to be successful.
Right.
And I'm a real hands-on owner.
Yep.
There's not a job in the place I can't do and actually do pretty well, and so stress could get high when you're we were 7 days a week, 363 days a year for 18 years.
Christmas and Thanksgiving?
That's right. Yep.
Wow.
And occasionally we would close on New Year's Day. But otherwise, I would ask the staff, do you want to open New Year's Day or not? And they'd say they want to open, we'd open.
Man, that's a lot. That's grueling. That is challenging.
Yes.
And man, that is a grind. That's a total grind.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned about knowing how to do everything and hands-on and doing everything. I mean, you're setting the example for all your folks as a leader of the place.
Yeah.
Everything speaks.
Yes, it does. And that has always been my management style to lead by example.
Yep.
And I think I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
And guess what? It helps time go. You're not.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yes, it sure does. I mean, just yesterday we were short-staffed and we said, wow, the day's going really quick.
Yeah.
That's the one good thing when you're busting tables. Day's going by fast.
Yeah, I'm sure. We talked earlier about changes that businesses must make in order to maintain success. Next, Peg shares the story behind quite the change, a name change, after 17 years. You got out of the franchise of La Peeps.
Yes.
And then now it's PEGGS.
Yes.
Talk to me about it. And you don't need to go into financial details or anything, but just in general.
Well, it was something that I had a tug to do for quite some time.
Okay.
I'm on the executive board of the Downtown Dining Association.
Okay.
And everybody's locally owned. I was locally owned, and I bought my partners out about 10 years in.
Okay.
So at this point, I own it, but it's a franchise. And my downtown partners kept saying, maybe you should get away from them. Maybe you should change the name. And so I actually had the Infocus group do
through Notre Dame.
They want to help retain Notre Dame students, but it's not just Notre Dame students. It's from several different colleges.
Okay.
But they got just, I think, 2/3 of the way through the study and said, we don't want you to pay us any more money because you should do it.
Really?
For sure, you should do it. So that gave me the understanding that it made sense. And I didn't understand many people weren't familiar with LaPeep from anywhere else. So they thought it was local.
Hand up. When I read it a few years ago, when you open on your own, I didn't know it was a franchise.
Right.
No clue.
So that piece of it, where all along I thought that I was getting some national brand name recognition. I'm sure I was a little bit, but not as much as I had hoped for. That piece of moving away didn't hurt at all, and my name happened to work out to put another G and have the word egg in it.
Speaking of changes, in 2020, the world was faced with changes, the pandemic. Next, we talk about how it impacted the business and her restaurant family, her staff. The grace that she and her business partner Kelly led with is a prime example as to why her place is so loved, and she did not take anything for granted. Man, a couple years into it, the pandemic hit. Talk to me about all that.
Kelly and I just knew that we decided that every decision we were going to make, we would say, is it good for our staff? Is it good for our customers?
Okay.
So anytime we made a decision, so the very first decision was to just close.
Right.
And so we wrote a big check and went and got some cash from First Source Bank and called the staff together and told them that they all needed to get on unemployment. And here's some money until you can do that.
Right.
And Kelly is not only an accountant, but she's much more conservative and way smarter with her money than I am.
Yeah.
I never have made decisions by what's this going to cost me.
Yeah.
If somebody asks for a donation, I give them a donation. And then a month later, their board is sitting in my dining room. Right. I mean, that's just kind of how it's always worked out for me. And so when I said, I think we should go get this money, she said, well, how do we know they're going to come back?
Yeah.
And how much money should we take? I said, how much money can we take? You tell me the highest number. That's what we're doing. And she did. And she always, she is more conservative, but she's also got a very generous heart. So she comes right around. We find the number that we both agree on and called the staff together, told them to get on unemployment, handed them money, and said, come back over the next few days and empty out the cooler. Because we have all this food. And so that's how that happened. And then we did Zoom calls and phone call check-ins. We actually said, we're going to take 2 weeks off. Let's take 2 weeks off and do nothing. So we did that. And then we got back and started strategizing. And part of that was to stay in real close communication with the staff. So we did that and making sure they all were receiving their unemployment and did they need anything else. And there were a couple that said, can't figure it out, haven't gotten it done yet, I'm not eligible, whatever. So we went to the bank again.
And helped them out.
And we, at the time, we were laying off 27 employees. We then, as we started planning the reopen, which we were closed for a little over 2 months.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So we talked to the staff about what they wanted to see different and talked about schedules and just stepped back in when they were ready. We something was dependent on what the mayor was saying at the time.
A lot of it had to do with the regulations and everything like that. Right.
And all of we also stayed in touch with the downtown restaurants, our downtown dining association. We did several Zoom calls with them. We pushed the mayor. I remember sitting in my backyard having a phone conversation with him saying, we really need to, get moving along. We've done, we think we've done what we can do.
Right.
So we just inched our way back. When we first reopened, we were only on the patio and only on weekends. But once we moved inside, we were very, very strict about mask enforcement. And we we know that paid off because we have a lot of older customers. And even to this day, we have customers that say, you are the only restaurant we come to. Even still.
I got goosebumps because that's telling. I mean,
yes,
that is.
They watched us. They saw us sanitizing
speaks.
everything. They saw,
everything speaks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So
that's something else.
We made it. And but that not for a minute did we take it for granted. And every time you heard a restaurant closing, we said, okay, how do we avoid that? How do we, we went after the PPP money and socked it away because we knew we had to.
Right.
And we gave all of our employees now are making way more money than they did before. And we're paying more, and our front of the house staff is still making incredible money. People are so kind and generous. I mean, they really are.
It's clear that Peg understands that her place often means a lot more to people than just a brick and mortar building where you can eat breakfast and lunch. And over the years, Peg has experienced some touching stories, happy and sad. Cool stories of customers over the years, like uplifting stories or just anything like that.
There's quite a few. Took a customer out to lunch who just recently moved into a retirement home. And she said to me just how welcome she feels when she comes in. And she said she congratulated me. I mean, it was really sweet and kind of really nice to have that moment with a customer before I came to do this. Just to remind me, because I can kind of forget what we've built. It's really something. So she was congratulating me on the business that I've built. And I said, well, I didn't do it alone.
Right.
I am surrounded by people that care about the business, care about our customers, and understand the importance, not just of customer service, but of getting to know the customers. And so that has been something that I always knew innately. And I take great pride and I get great joy from getting to know the customers.
And also, just one thing I noticed, Peg, in all those articles that I was reading, just to kind of prepare like a timeline and everything, you always use the word we, us, never I, never me. And that means a ton when you're leading others and everything right there. It's us. This is our,
Yes.
And so even you talking here, everything speaks.
Yes.
Everything speaks.
As I mentioned, just having lunch with this woman today, she and her husband had been coming. She said today they probably started coming in about 2005.
Okay.
And they were St. Anthony parishioners, and they just came every Sunday after church. And their favorite server was named Penny. And I have a cool story to tell you about Penny. But she waited on him every time they came in, and he would always give her 2 pennies,
I'd be a smart.
Yeah. And so he got sick about 5 years ago, and we were close enough with them that Kelly and I went to see him in his nursing home, and then he passed away. And she asked us to do his funeral luncheon and asked for Penny to come help with it, and of course we did. And she and her daughter were in last week, and her daughter, I hugged her daughter who lives in Florida. I hugged her, and she said, Mom just has 3 months to live. Yeah. And so this woman has been a part of our lives for over, almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And so it's not uplifting that.
No, but that's still,
that's how connected we have become with people. There was a group of people that worked for the school corporation that would come in every Friday, and one of the woman's daughter and grandson would come in, and they would always come in early in the morning. And one day they were the only customers there early in the morning, and I said, "Hey, Scott, you want to go in back?" Scott was probably 6 years old, 8 years old. Want to go in back and make your pancakes? And he's like, "Can I?" And so the server and he and I went in the back, and We let him make his pancakes. Said you can do whatever you want. Here's granola. Here's chocolate chips, and of course he loaded it up. It took two spatulas to flip the thing because it was so big. And Scott now works at the restaurant.
See, that's what it's about.
He actually goes to Adams.
Does he?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah. See, that's what it's about.
So it's these. I mean, and there are a lot of stories like that. I had a woman come in the other day who her kids graduated from Notre Dame 2 years ago, and they're getting married here in South Bend. And she said they want to have some of their favorite spots be part of their weekend, their wedding weekend. So what can we do here? Can you do a bridal luncheon? Can we do something after the wedding? And
I got goosebumps. Yeah, man. That's so neat.
I said that's so awesome, and she said, "Well, they love this place, and actually, they love you." She said. So I don't know. I don't always know if it's me or someone else connected with them, but she said on their 21st birthday, you came out and you did shots with them, and you sat with them, and I'm like, that's so awesome.
They'll never forget that.
Right.
You just heard a few stories of the bonds that Peg and her staff have shared with their customers over the years. What you will hear next is a live, authentic example of these relationships. Quick backstory. I wanted to be done with about 5 or 6 episodes before launching the podcast to the public, so I had been done with this particular episode for several weeks and was already working on others. My wife Annie and I just last week went out to breakfast at PEGGS and enjoyed a wonderful, tasty meal. But the bonds that we just heard about were on full display, as all of a sudden, Peg got the attention of the people in the room and talked to them for a moment. And then she and her team busted out in a song and sang to the Crimmins family, who has had a long-time relationships with Le Peeps and PEGGS. Of course, my iPhone is always close, so I was able to record and I included it in this episode. This is a prime example of why people keep coming back year after year after year. And Joe, we're thinking about you, my man.
We've celebrated birthdays, baptisms, weddings, funerals, and now we're just celebrating the fact that we love this family. I hired a big group of singers to sing to them. They do a lot of other jobs here too, but right now they're our singers. Nicole's going to try to lead us, and oftentimes we sing something that might be move people to tears, but we're trying to keep it a little lighter today. Oh yeah! We love you, Brandon. Oh yes, we do. We're afraid of you. That's true. When you're not here, we're blue. Brandons, we love you.
Being the metropolis that South Bend, Indiana is, celebrities and athletes just cannot help themselves and they just cannot stay away. And being downtown, in the thick of it, many of them have ate breakfast at PEGGS. Famous people in there over the years?
Had quite a few famous people.
All right, talk to me.
Yeah. Jay Leno.
Jay Leno was in there?
Yep,
okay.
He was super kind and let us take a photo with him.
Uh-huh.
Kenny Rogers.
Yeah.
Wasn't quite as kind.
Okay.
Must not have looked like how he looked that day.
Okay.
He let us do a photo, but then he said he'd sue me if I put it on my wall. I'm not kidding. I thought he was kidding. He wasn't. But we have the photo, and he's dead now. So,
yeah, put it on the damn wall.
Right. The cast from One Tree Hill.
Okay.
Came in. I didn't know who they were because I didn't watch One Tree Hill at the time. So that was fun. They let us take a photo with them. My brain's kind of going blank. Mike Tirico and NBC.
The NBC guys?
Yeah. You'll have to look at some point. Mike Tirico gave us a really nice shout out.
Okay.
He said if he wrote a book, what it would be titled was Breakfast at PEGGS.
Oh.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Through Notre Dame, we've had Doug Flutie and Catherine, whose last name I can't remember, but a lot of Notre Dame people. Brady Quinn was a very regular customer of ours. Mostly his junior and senior year. people would come in knowing that he was coming on Sundays. They'd come in with
Just
stuff for him to autograph. and he was super gracious. Yeah. So my son, so at the time my son was probably 8 years old, and he just thought it was the coolest thing. And Brady was really kind to him, and we saw him out in public once, and he looked down at him and said, "Hey, Connor." Connor was just like, "Oh my gosh."
God.
And so Connor had the occasion to meet LeBron James about a month ago.
Wow.
And he said, "Mom, I never could have even spoken to him if I didn't have all that experience with people from Notre Dame." Dick Vitale was in. And
okay.
Yeah. So
That's cool.
we've seen quite a few people over the years. We have had many of the cast from the plays at
the Morris.
The Morris.
Yep. That's
the
neat. That's
Lion
cool.
King was here. I don't know if you remember, but they were here right before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And they gave us tickets. We went backstage, and then 2 days later, the show was shut down because of some of the tickets that they gave to people, they weren't even able to go to the show.
But still, that's cool though.
Yes.
All those people in and out of there, that's neat. That's really cool.
I just thought of another famous person that
Go
was
for
in
it. What's up?
the Goo Goo Dolls.
Oh, did they perform at the Morris or something? Oh,
And I didn't get a picture or anything, but I knew it was them. I'm just messing around with them. They love the fact that I didn't know who they were at first, and I'm joking around with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They probably, people, famous people probably appreciate not being.
They want to be treated like real
They
people.
want, Yes. They probably even want to wait the hour wait to
Right.
eat.
Right.
Just normal people.
Yep.
Managing human beings is tough. Managing grown-ups is tough. But it's also rewarding because of the deep relationships and bonds that are formed over the years. Next, Peg and I talk about the challenges and rewards of leading employees. And it is most definitely a family affair. I know for a fact that managing people it can be quite challenging at times. It's rewarding, but it's also challenging. Harder than hell.
It sure is.
Managing grown-ups is tough.
It is. Yes, actually, managing kids is easier. And I have managed a lot of kids over the years, too. We hire people at 14 years old.
So the kiddos might be a little bit easier, even though they're a little bit greener. You have to train them.
Right,
but
they don't come with bad habits, typically.
Boom.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Yep. And they are, we get a good crew. They're typically very respectful, and they want to learn, and they enjoy learning and doing something new, and they enjoy working hard. Not all of them. We get some bad ones every once in a while.
What are some of the challenges of managing all the people?
There are challenges every day, but I have worked so hard. One, I do all of the hiring, and I didn't always do all the hiring, but I have for the last some time. I realized that I'm pretty good at reading people, and I know what I want, and I also want them to know who I am.
Correct.
Because you're coming to work. You are coming to work for me, no matter how much I say we. Right?
Of course. Yeah. You sign the checks.
Right. And so I tell them I have a very high bar. I expect you to work hard, and you'll see me working hard right along with you. And but if you are a slacker, you will not like this job.
Right.
You won't.
Right.
So
hustle.
Yeah. Yep. So it takes all of us to get the job done.
Right.
So I said I was going to come back to a story about Penny. And I will, but at one day I remember saying to her, "Penny, I'm sorry I'm being so particular about this, but can we move these tables just like 3 inches this way?" And she said, "Peg, don't ever apologize about being particular." She said, "That's why we're so successful."
Boom. Thank you, Penny.
Right. Thank you. So, Penny's younger sister, Gwen, started working at the restaurant about 19 years ago.
Okay.
And she still works there off and on. She's gone to other jobs. She might work only Sundays. Right now, she works at a RV place in Elkhart. She's laid off, so now she's working full time for me. She has it's a win-win.
You don't have to train her.
No. So after Gwen came Penny. And then came their mother, Cheryl. And then the 2 brothers, Nate and Matt. And then Matt's girlfriend, Danny.
Wow.
And then Penny's daughter, Zeri, and her son, Isaac. So
Wow.
this whole family, I have been so blessed. And
Wow.
when I talk about them, I realize I should make a journal about, I've probably employed at least 10 families where there have been at least 2 family members working. And that is all part of how we become a family kind of place.
Right.
And we don't leave mad at each other.
Yeah.
If there's an issue, we work on it today. And we have each other's back. We have to trust each other. We have to trust each other.
Yeah.
If I forget the butter, I sure hope somebody else remembers it, you know? And it's not my table. It's ours. I might get the tip from this table today, but you're going to wait on them tomorrow or the next day. And so that mentality, again, if you don't, I always ask a person to speak to me about teamwork in an interview.
Right.
If they don't know, understand, or believe in teamwork, I won't hire them.
We've talked about relationships with her customers and her staff. We would be remiss if we neglected to talk about her relationships with the community and the city over the years. And as you'll hear, the growth of her restaurants have coincided with the growth of our downtown area over the last 25 years. That is no accident. It is a true reciprocal partnership. We talked about relationships with your customers, relationships with your employees, relationships with the city and the community is huge. You know, not only do you need to, to understand your customers' needs and wants or your employees. I mean, you have to understand the scope and the sequence and understand what's going on in the city.
Right.
It's a partnership.
Yes.
It's literally,
a true partnership.
It is a true partnership. Talk to me about being in downtown South Bend. I mean, if you're like me, I love South Bend. I love it. I love South Bend area. And so I know you do too. So just talk to me about just being downtown.
Yeah,
and just about
I have great pride in being downtown. And I also take great pride in being part of the growth and rebirth or whatever. I love what's happening with all of the restaurants, and that's been happening for many years. When I look back on our first, actually when we were under construction, and I was there on Saturday in November or something, I called my partners and said, "There's not a car on the street right now. What are we thinking? How are
you
we
mean
gonna,
this was back 20?
This was 20 years.
20 plus years ago.
What are we doing?
Right.
How are we going to open a restaurant down here? They're like, don't worry, it'll be all right. And I'm happy to have been a part of that. That growth, and it's all sectors. It's the business and restaurant owners. It's the local government. It's the police department. It's we're all it's all of the not-for-profits. We're all working together. I have literally never said no to a request for a donation. We know what those not-for-profits do for our community members, right? From the Boys and Girls Club to Christ Child to, just all of them.
Absolutely.
To the Center for the Homeless. I mean, they all are doing their part to make our community better, healthier. We have a great relationship with Beacon and Memorial. We always have. They've been such big supporters of ours, and the local government, they ask us. Pete was really proactive with the business owners. I need your support in this. What do you think about this? How can I do this better?
Right.
Mayor Mueller has just had a little different approach, mostly because he was so early on in the pandemic, right?
Correct.
And he's been putting out fires for a while.
Right.
He does still work very hard to make things how they should be for all of us, and he listens to what we have to say.
Right.
We're a voice, and
darn right.
That's the other thing. Then we're collaborating. So a new restaurant comes on, we say, "What can we do to help you?" I'm not gonna. Are we gonna compete a little bit? Probably. You're another restaurant, gives people another choice, but I want you to succeed. The more people want to come downtown, the better off we all will be.
Absolutely.
The whole
Get that
all ships rise with the
yes. Rising tide lifts all ships.
Lifts all ships. Yeah.
Yes.
So we all feel that way. Well, most of us feel that way, and we're working very hard to make that a welcoming collaboration.
Yeah.
So
that was one of my questions. What type of responsibility do you feel to support other downtown businesses?
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I almost never eat at a chain restaurant.
Yeah.
I almost always eat in downtown South Bend.
Mhm.
I want to see everyone succeed.
Absolutely.
And same with my shopping. I do what I can.
Yeah, locally.
Downtown.
Yep.
So.
Yep. If you happen to be downtown the day of Mayor Pete's announcement to run for president, you'll agree that it was pretty cool. The buzz in the air was amazing, and it was definitely not your normal downtown South Bend day. And for Peg and her restaurant PEGGS, that day sparked quite the whirlwind over the next few months. April 15th, 2019 was Mayor Pete's announcement.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
What do you remember about that time, that day,
It was such a, that was such a great time for us. That announcement day was our busiest day on record at that time. That time. Now
you've surpassed that
surpassed
already.
that, yes. But it was quite a day, and it was leading up to it. We were probably 3 or 4 news channels had come in around that time. I did an interview with Harry Smith, because he was there. Harry Smith from NBC.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He was interviewing Pete, and then he did a little interview with me. Such a kind man. Anyway, so we were getting all kinds of press because we're one of Pete's places.
Right.
And Chicory was one, and Fiddler's Hearth. So he would talk about us, and he would set things up. He set up several interviews at PEGGS, because we could put him in a private room and it could be quiet, and people wouldn't know he was there or whatever. And so we got T-shirts printed that we were going to get for the staff, and then we were like, well, let's get a few extras. We'll see if they sell. I don't even know the number. I think we ended up selling about 300 shirts over the time. The end of the whole thing, we're mailing shirts now.
Yeah.
And people were coming to South Bend coming to PEGGS. We heard this is Pete's place. Do you have any of those shirts? We saw the shirts. Where else can I buy this Pete's merchandise? So, but that day in itself was just so awesome. There were people from all over the country, and you knew who they were right when they came in, and they were saying things like, we were on a wait, of course, and I don't mind sitting with. I can sit with someone else. So you can have that guy sit with me.
Just some random guy just come sit at my table.
They were just all so friendly, and they wanted to. It was a huge thing for them to be there and to meet people that were there also just to see Pete. I mean, there were people. We actually wrote down. And who did I give this list to? To the chamber, I think. We wrote down. I started writing down a list of people of where they were from. From Washington, California, Oregon. They were. We probably had 16 or so states that people were from, and they were just so excited. That was a really cool time. We did a special board that was trending on Twitter and Instagram because we got it to one of Pete's personal assistants or whatever through another connection, and I'm not going to be able to think of any of the specials, but they were used.
But it went viral and it retweeted.
Yeah, when my kids were like, "Oh my God, Mom, you should see this thing!" Yeah, so
that's neat.
Yeah, and still every once in a while on some of Pete's stuff, my daughter does our social media and a lot of our marketing. She'll say, "Mom, they're talking about you again on Pete's thing."
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's really cool.
That's neat. A common theme throughout our talk has been about the importance of relationships and partnerships. Next, we talk about how grateful Peg is for her relationship with the University of Notre Dame. Just a partnership with South Bend, Notre Dame.
Yeah.
There was an article in 2014 about Compton Ice Arena. It must have been right around that time when it had opened. And you had said that, when decisions are made at the high level at Notre Dame, they even impact little business person like us. And you said, we're so appreciative of the collaborative effort that Notre Dame's made to make sure their guests are spending their money and their time in downtown South Bend.
Right.
So it's not just South Bend, it's Notre Dame and the universities too.
Yeah. So I actually sent Jack Swarbrick some of those words.
Oh, okay.
And in an email. And Mark McDonald that owns LaSalle Grill called me one afternoon and said, "Hey, when did you talk to Jack Swarbrick?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "He just quoted you." I said, "Where are you?" He said, "I'm at the Hotel Motel Association Tax Board meeting. There's over 500 people here." And he just quoted from your email. Oh my God. What?
Did he respond to your email?
Yeah, no, he didn't.
But then he still quoted you.
Yeah, I didn't think he had gotten it. And so then Mark tells me this, and then I happened to see Jack Swarbrick that evening at a downtown restaurant. And I went and introduced myself, and he was like, and then we just had this nice chat. So he was thrilled that that I took the time to thank him and that I understood that. But I'm a grateful person. You know what I mean? Like I have gratitude in my heart most of the time. And so when those decisions are made, I see the result of it. And I want to say thank you to the people that are making those decisions, because they don't necessarily know how they're impacting us. So now, and then Mike McNeil, who runs the Compton, he just started sending me every week, "Here's the hockey teams coming in. Here's the phone numbers. Here's who you reach out to."
That's so
and
cool.
We get so much business from this hockey, and the hockey happens right after Notre Dame football ends.
Okay.
And so,
so it kind of keeps up.
yeah.
Then.
And now we have a good relationship with the Icebox, with the Compton, and the hotels work so hard to get this business. The third hotel downtown really changed our the environment down there as well. But the hotels work so hard to get the teams there, and we get a team and they come back year after year. I mean, we know that. They tell us. I mean, we were here last year. You guys did such a great job, and
that's cool.
And they come in and they're 37 people unannounced. Like just this real life just happened 2 weeks ago, and we're really sorry. We're like, it's fine. We're happy to have you. So, but yeah, and we those decisions are huge, and then we have just naturally built a great relationship with the students, and and a lot of businesses work really hard at that. We get lots of athletes, and that's really really good for us,
right?
And
it is.
We've been approached by several of the people that sponsor the athletes or whatever, that, how they can.
The NIL deal now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I say, no, thank you. We're going to just let it continue to happen organically.
Good.
And
good. I never even thought of that until you just mentioned it about the NIL.
It'll hurt me if I see some other breakfast place.
I know.
Sponsoring them, but that's okay.
You know what though? And those folks will probably still come right on back because it's authentic.
So. Yep.
It's not because of a check.
Right.
And it's not because of anything else other than they authentically like to come to your place.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't put any dollar signs on that.
Right.
As we were wrapping it up, I experimented with a little South Bend speed round where I asked some questions about our area in a quick fashion. And well, classic me, we got a little sideways and discussed why Andrew Berlin has been such a blessing to our area. Here is Peg sharing yet another example of why it's all about relationships.
Well, I haven't mentioned Andrew Berlin, the owner of the Cubs.
Yes.
And I'm remiss in not mentioning my relationship with them. So I'm going to say Andrew Berlin is one of our South Bend's biggest contributors. And
I'm going to go sideways. Talk to me.
So when he bought the team when it was still the Silverhawks in November 11th, 2011.
Okay.
I just remember that. Remember that
11.
Yeah. Anyway, he has been such a key part of bringing that ballpark back to where where it is, and we have a great relationship with that team. They do their when they come to town, they do their first breakfast at PEGGS, and
Right.
We see the players, we see the away team. We give a discount to the away team when they lose, and they have to ask for it as the loser's discount. And they're always laughing, and they take the discount. So, but it just the money he's dumped into the to the stadium and the ballpark and the area around the ballpark. He asked me once if he could do anything for me for the restaurants, and I said, well, I'd love for somebody from your organization to be on a billboard with me. And he's like, all right. So he did it. When he came into town to do it, I said, what are you in town for? He said, what do you mean? I said, I assume you had some meetings.
Yeah, like what else are you here for?
Because I had to schedule it with his scheduler. And he said, I'm here to do the billboard shoot.
Beautiful.
He said, you are a really good businesswoman, and I want to see you be successful.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. So.
God, that's so awesome. Yeah. And going back, the Cove, I still call it the Cove.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was a kid. I was born in 78. I think it opened in 87. So I was like 8 or 9 years old.
Right.
It was the neatest thing to go there with your little league team, with your family. You bring your mitt. And then I got older, and, you know, when I was like 21, 22, it was like the Dollar Mondays, and it got wild. And then as soon as when he came in and bought it, and then, you know, we Cubs affiliate, and since then it has been such a beautiful thing.
It really has.
I mean, I've taken my boys there as 3, 4, 5-year-olds, and I can take them there now as 15, 20-year-olds and have just the same amount of fun.
Yep.
I can meet up with my buddies who might have younger children, who I can just hang out with them, but then they can keep an eye on their kids running around. It's just such a beautiful thing for our downtown.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
I mean, it is, man, I love it. Next, I asked Peg about the future. And you'll also hear why, since the pandemic, she feels that she is a much nicer person. What's the future looking like?
A very good question. Well, that's a very good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Keep on keeping on.
I keep saying, why did I put my name on there if someday I didn't want to be working this hard? But I love what I do. I mean, I really do. I never wake up thinking I don't want to go to work today. So I feel really, really grateful. Again, I get to get paid for something I love to do.
It's a beautiful thing. Beautiful.
Yes. Now, you know, most people know that you don't make a ton of money in the restaurant business, and especially when you're selling eggs that are costing so much money right now.
Quadruple.
Right. But I don't plan on working this hard forever.
Right. And
I didn't mention this. The pandemic really changed things for so many people, and we made it through. Grateful for that. But we now are only open 5 days a week. We are only open 5 days a week, and we close a week at Christmas and a week over the 4th of July.
Yep.
So I see things differently.
Yep.
And I'm not going to ever again work as hard as I worked for the first 18 years of this business, right? So I'm a much nicer person now. I'm a happier person.
Perspective, I tell you, it did give a lot of us some perspective and more balance possibly in our lives.
Right.
I don't know. And you mentioned being grateful. I mean, hopefully we're all grateful for the little things that you know that we take for granted. I think that you all will agree that Peg can hold her head high and be dang proud of what she and her team have built. Next, she reflects on the 20-plus years in downtown South Bend and how amazing her journey has been. At the turn of the century, when you opened up Le Peeps, man, did you ever think a quarter century later that you would be a true anchor in our downtown area?
No. I had no idea what it would turn into.
It's amazing.
It's been an absolutely amazing journey for me in so many ways. I've met so many wonderful people and had so many awesome experiences that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
Right. That is so neat. It's more than just eggs and food, you know? It's relationships and people.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to our first ever episode of Round the Bend Now and Then. I am so grateful that you spent your time listening, and I hope that you continue to do so. If you appreciated it, please share with a friend who you think would enjoy it. A special thanks to Peg Dalton for sharing your journey with us. I'm sure it was quite random to receive a long message from a total stranger describing my vision for a podcast and asking that you come on. So Peg, I totally appreciate you taking the risk and trusting me to capture your journey. I truly hope the listeners got a sense of how dedicated you are to our community and how much your restaurant has meant to a quarter century of customers. Listeners out there, be sure to stop by PEGGS. I don't even need to tell you why, as you just heard about an hour's worth of the why. Be sure to follow PEGGS on social media. Facebook, PEGGS, that is PEGGS. On Twitter, at PEGGS_South Bend, or on Instagram, PEGGS_SB. In our next episode, I welcome Roger Parent, former city councilman, South Bend's mayor in the 1980s, former school board member, and most of all, dedicated to South Bend, Indiana. In the episode, we discuss his book about public leadership called Getting Things Done. Then, I ask him all about his experiences in the 1970s and 80s with urban renewal in our city. As a fledgling starting podcast, please do me a few favors. First, if you like the show, please share it with others that you think would appreciate it. Go ahead and download and subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform you use. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, smash that download button. Also be sure to follow or like us on Twitter at Round the Bend Pod or on Facebook, Round the Bend Now and Then. Please provide me with any feedback. If you want to point something out that you appreciate, let me know. If there's something that you feel that I can improve upon, let me know. Reach out to me through email, roundthebend574@gmail.com, or you can message me on Twitter or Facebook. Join us again next episode to learn more about South Bend and Mishawaka's now and then.